Dammi le chiavi.
Impariamo l'italiano piano piano.
Un impegno quotidiano. I started studying Italian last year. I lived in France for 3 years. You took a book from the library. You sat down next to me. We opened a restaurant in the city. Who can tell me, if you wanted to say these sentences in Italian, what tense would you use? How would you put it together?
Oh, lo so, è, aspetta, il passato remoto.
Non proprio, Antonio. That's not quite right. Il passato remoto non ci serve ancora. We don't need the passato remoto yet.
Uffa, sempre il solito copione.
Same old script, huh? If you say so, se lo dici tu. Antonio, perché pensi sempre al passato remoto? Why do you always think in the passato remoto? Stai leggendo troppi romanzi storici? Have you been reading too many historical novels?
Che colpa ne ho se suona più elegante?
No, it's not your fault that the passato remoto is probably more elegant than the passato prossimo. And you're probably right.
Sì, visse, amò, morì. Suona meglio di ha vissuto. Ha amato, è morto.
Vero. Il passato remoto suona più romantico del passato prossimo. True, the passato remoto sounds more romantic than passato prossimo. But then we mere mortals, to talk about our daily experiences, we use the passato prossimo. Ma noi comuni mortali, per raccontare le nostre esperienze quotidiane, useremo il passato prossimo, no?
Per voi comuni mortali, forse, ma io preferisco restare nel mio mondo di avventure epiche.
So, how about we listen to those same examples again, but this time I'll pause after each one. Time for you to say the Italian or hit the pause button while you think about it. Say it and hit play again. I started studying Italian last year.
Io ho cominciato a studiare italiano l'anno scorso.
I lived in France for 3 years.
Io ho vissuto in Francia per 3 anni.
You took a book from the library.
Tu hai preso un libro dalla biblioteca.
You sat down next to me.
Tu ti sei seduto accanto a me.
We opened a restaurant in the city.
Noi abbiamo aperto un ristorante in città.
Hi, and welcome to my podcast. I'm Myra, and today is part 1 of the Passato Prossimo. The Passato Prossimo, in English referred to as past perfect, is about completed actions tied to the present or relevant to the current discussion. For example, I ate a pizza. Ho mangiato una pizza. Passato Prossimo is a snapshot. Something happened, it's done, but it's still fresh in our minds.
Ah, il passato prossimo. Perfetto per raccontare le mie grandi imprese. Tipo, ho conquistato il cuore di una ragazza ieri sera. Una cosa veloce, fatta, conclusa. Capito?
You won a girl's heart last night. Something quick, done, completed. Interessante scelta di esempio. Interesting choice of example, Antonio. Ritorniamo a noi ancora una volta. Returning to the topic at hand once again, we're going to cover Passato Prossimo from the beginning. However, If you're more of an intermediate learner, don't lose faith. Even if you already know how to form the Passato Prossimo, this podcast will help you to mettere in pratica, put into practice what you've learned. Through practical exercises, you'll actively form sentences and gain confidence to use this tense in real conversations. If you've listened to the episodes on the imperfetto tense, I think you'll agree that we're doing it as painlessly as possible, immersing you in a 10-chapter story where we have already met Mariella, a young woman living in Florence, dreaming of a more fulfilling life. Mariella is about to embark on an adventure through Italian history, family secrets, and personal discovery. Along the way, you'll practice the Passato Prossimo and other essential grammar through engaging practical exercises. In previous episodes, we studied the imperfetto, which describes ongoing or habitual actions in the past or provides background details and descriptions. For example, I used to eat pizza every Saturday. Mangiavo sempre la pizza il sabato. So, where the Passato Prossimo is a snapshot, you could think of the imperfetto as a looping video, something that happened repeatedly or lasted over time without a clear end point. There's a third past tense that is also included in the B1 level, which for now this podcast is aiming at, and that is the Passato Prossimo. We'll get to that one later in our 10-chapter story. And then there are more past tenses such as passato remoto, trapassato remoto, which you'll not need just yet, or so I'm told, because I do come across the passato remoto quite often. However, officially, it's not required for this level, and so we'll leave that one for now. Italian past tenses vary in how they're constructed. Some are single word or simple tenses, like the imperfetto, and some are two-word or compound tenses. Passato Prossimo is a compound tense.
2 parole. Facile. Io ho conquistato. Lei mi ha adorato. Lei ha ceduto al mio fascino.
Esatto, Antonio. You conquered, she adored you, and she succumbed to your charms. A verb and a completed action. But before this podcast becomes X-rated, can we get back to l'argomento in questione? As I was saying, it takes two words to form the Passato Prossimo. So what are these two words? Well, you have the present tense of either avere or essere, plus the past participle of the verb. I am assuming that you've already learned some basic verb conjugation in the present tense. You need to know that in order to form the auxiliary or helping verbs. As I did earlier, I'll provide you with the prompts and you'll have the opportunity to come up with the Italian. This way, if you care to listen to this podcast episode again, you'll have the opportunity to solidify your knowledge, to make your brain work and come up with the Italian. If you're not too shy or concerned about what the people around you might think of you speaking out loud in Italian, then you're ready to make the most of this podcast experience. Enough talk. Okay, let's roll up our sleeves. Rimbocchiamoci le maniche. When you're conjugating a verb in Italian, what are the first three persons? I, you informal, he or she, io, tu, lui, lei. And the second three, the plural of the first three, we, you all or you guys, you plural, and they, noi, voi, loro. Now, what did we say the two auxiliary or helping verbs are? To have and to be, or avere and essere. Now it's time to make ourselves heard. Facciamoci sentire. Conjugating avere, present tense indicative, presente indicativo, io, tu, lui, lei.
Io ho, tu hai, lui o lei ha.
Noi, voi, loro.
Noi abbiamo. Voi avete. Loro hanno.
If you're at the level of a learner studying for your B1, you likely have this down pat by now because avere is one of the two most important verbs in Italian and one of the first things that most people learn. The other very important verb, of course, is essere. But for the sake of any new learners, let's do this one more time. Rifacciamolo. This time we'll do as the native Italians do and leave out the pronouns. E ora senza I pronomi soggetto. Io, tu, lui, lei. O, I, a. Noi, voi, loro. Abbiamo, avete, hanno. Okay, now let's mix it up a little. Here's avere again, but this time not in the usual order. Noi abbiamo. Lui o lei ha. Io ho. Loro hanno. Voi avete. Tu hai. Here's another shuffle. Tu hai. Loro hanno. Io ho. Voi avete. Lui, lei ha. Noi abbiamo. So, that is avere, one of the two auxiliary verbs that you need for any compound tense in Italian. The next thing you need to form the passato prossimo is the past participle, il participio passato. So, how do we come up with that? Generally speaking, you need to take off the last three letters from the infinitive of the verb. What's an infinitive? If you were brought up a native English speaker like myself, you may not even know these basic grammatical terms. So let's just say that the infinitive of a verb is the same as saying to do something, to note, to believe, to feel. In Italian, infinitives generally end in are, ere, or ire. They're also referred to as first, second, and third conjugations. So to get to the past participle, we need to remove the last three letters from the Italian infinitive, or infinito, and change it to, for are verbs, atto, for ere verbs, utto, and for ire verbs, ito. For example, how do you say to note, as in to take note? Notare, so that's the infinitive. Notare is an are verb, so the past participle would be notato. Next one, to believe. Credere. Credere is What type? An ERE verb. So the participio passato is creduto. How about to feel or to smell? Sentire. What type of verb? IRE. Past participle? Sentito. So let's do these three again. I'll provide the infinito, and you say the participio passato. Notare. Notato. Credere. Creduto. Sentire. Sentito. So to form these verbs, you need to know which auxiliary verb, avere or essere, you need to use. Put them together and ecco fatto, it's done. So how do we decide which verbs use avere and which ones use essere? Is the verb transitive or not? What? Nothing like a word you've never heard of before to explain a concept you don't understand. For this, I am truly sorry, but it will give us a common language and it will provide you with a hook where you can hang this very useful rule. A transitive verb is a verb that can take an object. In other words, can you logically answer what or whom after the verb? So tell me, can you ask what about notare? Yes, you can note something. This is a transitive verb. What about credere? Yes, you can believe something. Sentire? Yes, again, you can feel or smell something. These are transitive verbs. Therefore, they take the auxiliary verb avere. How about let's think of transitive verbs being verbs that transfer the action to someone or something. So knowing that these are transitive verbs, let's put it together. But first, some vocabulary. What is the Italian word for a mistake? Un errore. For the news? La notizia. The thunderstorm. Il temporale. Perfect. Now, do you recall the Italian word for to note? Notare. Past participle? Notato. And now for some practice. Positions, everybody. Are you ready? I noted a mistake.
Io ho notato un errore. Io ho notato un errore.
You noted a mistake.
Tu hai notato un errore. Tu hai notato un errore.
He or she noted a mistake.
Lui/lei ha notato un errore. Lui/lei ha notato un errore.
We noted a mistake.
Noi abbiamo notato un errore. Noi abbiamo notato un errore.
You all noted a mistake.
Voi avete notato un errore. Voi avete notato un errore.
They noted a mistake.
Loro hanno notato un errore. Loro hanno notato un errore.
Well done. Next, what was to believe?
Credere.
Past participle?
Creduto.
I believed the news.
Io ho creduto la notizia. Io ho creduto la notizia.
You believed the news.
Tu hai creduto la notizia. Tu hai creduto la notizia.
she believed the news.
Lei ha creduto la notizia. Lei ha creduto la notizia.
We believed the news.
Noi abbiamo creduto la notizia. Noi abbiamo creduto la notizia.
You all believed the news.
Voi avete creduto la notizia. Voi avete creduto la notizia.
They believed the news.
Loro hanno creduto la notizia. Loro hanno creduto la notizia.
And the word for to feel or to smell,
Sentire.
past participle.
Sentito.
I heard the thunderstorm.
Io ho sentito il temporale. Io ho sentito il temporale.
You heard the thunderstorm.
Tu hai sentito il temporale. Tu hai sentito il temporale.
He or she heard the thunderstorm.
Lei ha sentito il temporale. Lei ha sentito il temporale.
We heard the thunderstorm.
Noi abbiamo sentito il temporale. Noi abbiamo sentito il temporale.
You all heard the thunderstorm.
Voi avete sentito il temporale. Voi avete sentito il temporale.
They heard the thunderstorm.
Loro hanno sentito il temporale. Loro hanno sentito il temporale.
You've got it. Ci sei.
Ci sei.
Okay, Antonio, settle down. So far, we have said that if a verb takes an object, answers the question of what or whom, it's transitive. And for transitive verbs, the auxiliary verb is avere. And verbs that are intransitive don't take an object. Can you guess what the auxiliary verb would be? You got it. Essere. Using essere as the auxiliary in Passato Prossimo will be covered in the next episode. Right now I have an exercise for you that will help bring this Passato Prossimo tense to light. Remember the last part of our story when Mariella was dreaming of a job where she could share her love of culture and history? How about we rewrite it in Passato Prossimo? And then I'd like you to consider what effect that would have on our story. If you take a look for the transcript for this episode, you can find the text that you've seen already for part 2, but with the verbs in imperfetto highlighted along with their infinitive. With the exception of dire and prendere, all of these verbs have regular past participles. So those two you may have to look up. Your assignment is to replace the imperfetto verbs in this text with Passato Prossimo, meaning the conjugated form of avere for the appropriate person or subject pronoun, and the past participle of the verb. For example, the first one is, she dreamed of a job in which she could share her love for culture. Sognava un lavoro in cui potesse condividere il suo amore per la cultura. What is the past participle of sognare? Sognato. And the third person conjugation of avere? Ah. So the same sentence in Passato Prossimo would be ha sognato un lavoro in cui potesse condividere il suo amore per la cultura. Can you sense the difference between the two tenses? Sognava? Ha sognato? You tell me. If you'd like to comment on this, I'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to click Send Me a Text in the podcast description for this episode. The answers for this assignment will be provided in the transcript for the next regular episode. But I'd like to encourage you to do this exercise before checking the answer key. We're just getting started with Passato Prossimo, but let's take a break from the theory and grammar and see how past tenses work in action.
Finalmente. Pensavo fosse un podcast di avventura, non di coniugazioni.
Un po' di entrambi, Antonio, a bit of both.
Entrambi, Mayra. Devi far vibrare la R.
Entrambi. Entrambi.
Ma sarà una lunga strada.
And speaking of adventure, as you listen to this next part of our story, notice how we're still using imperfetto for descriptions and background details, but when something happens, Passato Prossimo takes over. See if you can catch the exact moment when Passato Prossimo takes over, when the action kicks in. And now, how about we return to our story, where Mariella's days have been following a familiar routine: work, dreams of something more, and quiet moments of nostalgia for her grandmother, Nonna Maria. But tonight, as the autumn rain falls over Florence, an unexpected visitor arrives at her door, holding something that just might change everything. Antonio?
Va bene. Lo leggo piano piano. Ora che sua nonna non c'era più, Mariella sentiva la sua mancanza, non solo perché era gentile e affettuosa, ma anche per i giochi che preparava per i bambini. Organizzava cacce al tesoro o enigmi da risolvere. Lorenza, la migliore amica di Mariella, che nonna Maria aveva soprannominato Nenzina, ma Mariella aveva sempre chiamato Zina. Lavorava come barista in un bar non lontano dall'ufficio di Mariella. Zina faceva i migliori cappuccini di Firenze, ma spesso si lamentava dei clienti scortesi e dei turni lunghi. Se non avessi bisogno dei soldi, lascerei domani, aveva detto a Mariella più di una volta. Mariella ricordava che in giornate autunnali come quella di oggi, sua nonna Maria preparava loro la cioccolata calda e che si sedevano tutti accanto al camino, nella residenza collegata alla biblioteca, ad ascoltare storie. Su Lorenzo de' Medici, un uomo potente di Firenze che sosteneva artisti e pensatori. Caterina Sforza, una donna di grande intelligenza nota per il suo coraggio. E naturalmente Garibaldi, l'eroe dei due mondi, che credeva nella libertà e nella giustizia e che, come piaceva dire a nonna Maria, era stato molto importante nella creazione dell'Italia che conosciamo oggi. Una sera piovosa di ottobre, dopo un'altra lunga giornata all'agenzia di viaggi, Mariella si è versata un bicchiere di vino e si è seduta sul suo scomodo e vecchio divano. Si stava appena rilassando quando ha sentito bussare alla porta. Il rumore era deciso, ma non troppo forte. «Chi può essere a quest'ora?» ha mormorato, alzandosi con un sospiro. Quando ha aperto la porta, Zina era lì, completamente fradicia. «Zina, che cosa ci fai qui con questo tempo?» ha chiesto Mariella, notando la giacca gocciolante e l'espressione stanca dell'amica. «Devo mostrarti qualcosa», disse Zina, tirando fuori un pacchetto avvolto in carta marrone dalla sua borsa.
Shall we have one more listen before we wind things up?
Un po' più veloce, eh? Va bene, Mayra. Ora che sua nonna non c'era più, Mariella sentiva la sua mancanza, non solo perché era gentile e affettuosa, ma anche per i giochi che preparava per i bambini. Organizzava cacce al tesoro o enigmi da risolvere. Lorenza, la migliore amica di Mariella, che nonna Maria aveva soprannominato Nenzina, ma Mariella aveva sempre chiamato Zina. Lavorava come barista in un bar non lontano dall'ufficio di Mariella. Zina faceva i migliori cappuccini di Firenze, ma spesso si lamentava dei clienti scortesi e dei turni lunghi. «Se non avessi bisogno dei soldi, lascerei domani», aveva detto a Mariella più di una volta. Mariella ricordava che in giornate autunnali come quella di oggi, sua nonna Maria preparava loro la cioccolata calda e che si sedevano tutti accanto al camino, nella residenza collegata alla biblioteca, ad ascoltare storie su Lorenzo de' Medici, un uomo potente di Firenze che sosteneva artisti e pensatori, Caterina Sforza, una donna di grande intelligenza nota per il suo coraggio, e naturalmente Garibaldi, l'eroe dei due mondi, che credeva nella libertà e nella giustizia e che, come piaceva dire a nonna Maria, era stato molto importante nella creazione dell'Italia che conosciamo oggi. Una sera piovosa di ottobre, dopo un'altra lunga giornata all'agenzia di viaggi, Mariella si è versata un bicchiere di vino e si è seduta sul suo scomodo e vecchio divano. Si stava appena rilassando quando ha sentito bussare alla porta. Il rumore era deciso, ma non troppo forte. «Chi può essere a quest'ora?» ha mormorato, alzandosi con un sospiro. Quando ha aperto la porta, Zina era lì, completamente fradicia. «Zina, che cosa ci fai qui con questo tempo?» ha chiesto Mariella, notando la giacca gocciolante e l'espressione stanca dell'amica. «Devo mostrarti qualcosa», disse Zina, tirando fuori un pacchetto avvolto in carta marrone dalla sua borsa.
Before we wrap up, I'm excited to let you know that there's a bonus episode available exclusively for subscribers. In this episode, we'll explore key vocabulary from part 4 of our story, giving you a head start for podcast episode 5. You'll hear new words in context, work through recall exercises, and challenge yourself with a mini quiz and interactive flashcards. If you'd like to boost your Italian and support the podcast, just click the link in the description to support the show. Oh, yes, and before we go, I want to say grazie di cuore to a listener from Syracuse, New York, who sent me a short message through the Buzzsprout platform. It simply said, "Vorrei ascoltare il tuo podcast." There wasn't a name, just a 4-digit number, so I cannot reply. But if that was you, I want you to know I received your message and it really means a lot to me. And maybe it's a good time to clarify something for any new listeners. If you ever try to play an episode and you get a message saying it requires a subscription, that just means you've clicked on a bonus episode. All the main episodes are free, but if you'd like to support the show and get extra practice materials like vocabulary quizzes, flashcards, and interactive practice exercises, you would need to subscribe. Also, a quick note about transcripts. I include transcripts for every episode, but not all podcast platforms can display them. If you don't see one while you're listening, just follow the link in the episode description to find the show on Buzzsprout. There you'll always find the full transcript, plus any assignment text and answers when available. This brings us to the end of today's episode, but as always, come sempre, your work isn't quite finished yet. Good luck with your assignment. In bocca al lupo. Do you remember the correct response to that classic Italian expression of good luck? Back in episode 2, Crafting the Past, the imperfetto part 2, Antonio taught us what to say to make sure that good luck actually works. Can you recall what it was? Here's a little challenge for you. The first 3 people to text me the correct answer will get free access to the next bonus episode. It includes contextual introductions for each category of new words, active recall exercises, mini quizzes, and interactive flashcards, all to help you get ready for Episode 5, Secrets Revealed, Passato Prossimo, Part 2. You'll find the Send Me a Text link in the episode description. Non vedo l'ora di sentirvi. In the meantime, let's find that quiet place where you can feel free to speak out loud and have another listen to this episode, practicing along with me. Take your time, enjoy the process, and remember, learning happens piano piano. Ci vediamo! Alla prossima!
Tutti bianchi?
Arrivo, scusi, vedi dove? Non lo sappiamo. Di dove siete voi? Canada? Bravo! Due cose no, quel pilastro.